In this Whiteboard Leadership moment, I want to talk to you about church styles. Now, I'm not talking about worship styles, music styles, contemporary, modern, traditional, classic. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how churches are organized. And I think this is a great conversation because so many different things are working out there these days. One size, one style does not fit all. And your church, whether you realize it or not, probably fits into one of these categories. So I encourage you to think through which category you fit into and what's your next step as an organization. The simplest one is what we call a single cell or a single venue church. This is a church that typically has one service and the body really feels tight-knit to one another. The relationships go very, very deep and they tend to last a long, long time. They're also vulnerable because if there's a crisis in the cell, in the venue, then it tends to affect everybody. And yet, this is the most common type of church you see today, even in the United States. These churches are typically under 100 people, and they're solid, love God, a good model to have, especially in a context where there's a few Christians who are gathering together. And it's a model used all around the world as well. And you've got the multi-venue or the multi-service church. They may have a place where they've got a location that limits them, but they have one style in one service and one style in another. They may have different things that go on in the life of the church, but that typically the content of these two gatherings, these two services, or these two venues, the content of the message is the same, but they may change the music. So it may be traditional in one and modern in another. I know one church that has multiple different venues on the same campus. They're all watching the same sermon on video, but their music is different and the interaction is different in those different venues. It's very effective. It's been working for 20 plus years. The next one is called multi-cell, and the most popular name for it these days is the micro church. Again, this church tends to focus on discipleship. It tends to focus on making sure that everyone is on mission. It's a very powerful tool, especially in places where buildings are not affordable, but discipleship is the main focus. Leadership development is the main focus. I know one church in Tampa that has about 200 of these cells. They actually bought a building recently so the leaders could meet together. But these cells actually never meet together. We have another church in Converge in New Jersey that has about 40 different cell groups, but they rarely come in together at common except when another church allows them to have a facility to meet in. But this is very, very popular. And what it does so well is it raises up leadership at the lowest levels. It empowers the ordinary person to help others and disciple others. And then you have the multi-site. In Converge, we have about 70 multi-site congregations. Some are very, very big and some are smaller. But the thing about the multi-site is typically there's a pastor on a screen. There is a message that is the same everywhere, and in most cases they are very much the exact same thing across the campuses. In some cases they may be a suburban church with an urban setting in one of their sites, and they'll do different music or have a different style or different look to the building, or they'll be in a rural area and have a different look, different style to the building. But for the most part there's a great conformity to what a multi-site church, especially those who have 5, 6, 7, 10 campuses, they become more conformed over time rather than less. And then the next we have the multi-congregational model, which is very much like multi-site, except they've probably chosen to have live speaking on every campus, having a lead pastor on every campus, and they may actually study the passage together. Their commonality comes in there. They decided to put their HR and their IT, the web communications department, marketing department, all in one area, and let's just all work with that. But we're going to have distinct congregations. We're going to have distinct leadership. Every campus may have its own board, its own leadership structure, and its own lead pastor. And then finally, there are what we call movement churches. Movements that typically start off as a multi-site, multi-congregational, but then they get bigger and people want to join them. And there's strategic partnerships and other things. And you see this in different places like Life Church. And I mean, there's so many people that go to that church. It's maybe multi-site, but it seems to be more than that as outside churches begin to join them in their messaging and other things. Or North Point with Andy Stanley with strategic partnerships, or North Coast with Larry Osborne, or there's many others. These movements turn into the groups like Acts 29. They turn into movements like ARC. and you see this great collaboration happening. Or they turn into movies like Converge, who's been around for so many years, since 1852, doing this same kind of thing, helping people meet, know, and follow Jesus by starting and strengthening churches together worldwide. What's so interesting about these movements is they can have multi-congregational, multi-site, multi-cell, multi-venue, or single cell. They can all be a part of the movement, but they have in common their mission, vision, and their strategies. They have in common their desire to see people know Christ wherever they are and be a vibrant local church in whatever context they have, and to possibly continue to expand way beyond their present situation. So here's my question. Which one are you? And if so, what's your next step? If you're a single cell or single venue, you may ask yourself, what would it take to become a multi-venue, a multi-service kind of church? What if our community needs it, what are we planning to do? If you're multi-venue, maybe you want to look at multi-site. What about having venues that are not on this site that reach other parts of the city, people that wouldn't possibly come to our scenario? If you're multi-cell, just keep doing what you're doing, but you may ask yourself, are there things we need to communicate that are visual and digital that would be common? What's the commonalities that we need to move across? Multi-congregational, again, doing a great job, but ask yourself, who can we learn from? Hopefully you'll learn from all these people. There's a strength to each one of these models, and I hope that you enjoy your conversation. This has been a Converge Whiteboard Leadership Moment. To learn more about Converge or to join us, check out converge.org.